Hello everyone. I'm really glad to have you back on my channel. If in the previous stories, Hùng and Hoài Ca were often the ones facing clear difficulties, challenges that could be seen, that could be named, then this time, everything unfolds in a very different way. No longer external conflicts, no longer situations that can be solved immediately, but something more subtle, slower, and much harder to grasp. This time the story happens to Hai and Chu San. There is no noise, no sudden changes, no events that instantly turn everything upside down. But it is still a challenge, not rooted in circumstances, but in emotions. A challenge that cannot be clearly seen, but touches the deepest parts within. In recent days, everything has still been going on as usual. No obvious differences, no major changes in life. But if you look closely, you will notice something. Tian is no longer the same as before. Not a drastic change, not something others would immediately recognize, but small signs, moments when she slows down, times when she stays silent more often, moments where she no longer seems as comfortable as usual. She often feels tired, not so tired that she can't function, not to the point where everything must stop, but a lingering fatigue, with no clear cause, no clear beginning, no specific sign to identify it. It's not a serious illness. No obvious symptoms. No fever. No clear pain. Nothing alarming at first glance. But it's not normal either. Just a sense that something isn't right. A very slight change, but repeated over time. And that repetition makes it impossible to ignore. Chu San doesn't talk much about it. No complaints. No constant mention. Maybe she thinks it's just normal fatigue, something anyone could experience. After days of working, after not getting enough rest, she continues her routine as usual. No change in pace, no stopping her work, no difference in behavior. As if she doesn't mention it, everything will return to normal on its own. But Hai noticed, not immediately, not from the very first signs, but after a period of observation. He doesn't need to ask much, doesn't need to investigate deeply.
Juste pays attention.
Just watches, just feels. Small details, when placed together, gradually form something clearer. He doesn't say anything right away, doesn't rush to conclusions, doesn't make things tense. He keeps his usual approach. Calm, steady, without pressure. No overwhelming questions. No obvious display of worry. No change in behavior. Just care. Gentle. At the right time. And enough for her to feel it. Then he speaks. Just one sentence. Short. Simple. Let's go get a checkup tomorrow. Not a demand. Not an order. Not a forced decision. Just a suggestion. But within it, there is certainty. There is care. And there is caution. Chu San listens. No strong reaction.
No visible worry.
No further questions. She agrees. Naturally. Without hesitation. Without much thought. Not because she realizes something is wrong, but because she trusts the way Hai cares for her. At the same time, she doesn't think too far ahead. Doesn't imagine complications. Doesn't make assumptions. In her mind, everything is still simple. Maybe she's just tired. Maybe she's just been working more than usual. Maybe her body hasn't adjusted yet. Maybe she just needs rest. And then, everything will be fine. That thought is not wrong, but it may not be the whole truth. And the gap between what she believes and what is actually happening is what makes this story different. Not loud, but not simple. No immediate major event, but enough to make someone pause and look more closely. And from there, what once seemed like small signs begins to become something else. Something that can no longer be ignored, but When the results came back, everything could no longer remain the same. No longer simple thoughts, no longer gentle assumptions, no longer the feeling of just tired. Everything began to change, not through a major event, but through a single sentence. Short, clear, and leaving no room for another interpretation. The doctor didn't speak in circles, didn't choose softer words, didn't prolong the conversation. Just one sentence. We need further monitoring, but there are abnormal signs. No long explanation, no immediate details. But even that was enough. The atmosphere in the room did not change in appearance, but the feeling was completely different. No longer a routine checkup, no longer a casual conversation, but a silence. No one reacted immediately. No one asked questions. No one tried to clarify, not because they didn't want to understand, but because they couldn't yet. A short sentence, but carrying too much weight, making every thought impossible to organize right away. Just silence. A silence, not because there was nothing to say, but because there was too much to process. On the way home, there was no conversation. No one spoke first. No one tried to break the silence. Tiu-san sat beside him, looking outside, not focusing on anything specific, just letting her gaze drift, as a way to avoid thinking too much.
Hãy đờ đốt.
Focused ahead, didn't turn to look at her, didn't say anything, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know where to begin. Everything looked the same. The road was the same. The space was the same. The movement unchanged. But the feeling wasn't. No longer familiar. No longer steady. Just a state. Hard to describe. In the following days, they returned to the hospital. No longer a single checkup, but multiple visits. No longer initial confirmation, but deeper investigation. More detailed tests. More careful examinations. The waiting time also grew longer. No longer minutes. No longer just one session, but multiple stretches of time, linked together. And with each visit, the feeling of waiting changed as well. No longer light, no longer simple, but a state of both hope and worry, unclear, unstable. And then, the conclusion came, not shocking in a sudden way, but not something to take lightly, not the worst outcome, but not something that could be ignored. A health issue, not obvious at first, but enough to require treatment. Not a quick solution, not something that could end soon, but something that needed time, needed monitoring, and needed patience. Tiu-san listened. She didn't cry, didn't react strongly, didn't let her emotions show outwardly. She just sat there, not because she wasn't afraid, not because she didn't understand, but because she was trying to process it, trying to understand what was happening, trying to rearrange everything she once thought was normal. No immediate questions, no clear reaction, just a quiet stillness. Hai stayed beside her. He didn't say big words, didn't make distant promises, didn't try to create comfort through words. Just one sentence. I'm here. Not much, not complicated, but enough. Enough for Tiu-san to know she wasn't facing this alone. The days of treatment began, and they were not easy. Not because of specific pain, not because of clear symptoms, but because of change. Everything was no longer the same. Habits, plans,
Familiar routines.
all had to be adjusted. Not completely changed, but no longer as before. Tiu-san no longer worked the same way, no longer moved around as much, no longer handled everything on her own, no longer kept the same pace of life. Things that once felt normal now required thought, adjustment, slowing down. Hai changed too, not through words, but through actions. He did more, took initiative more often, observed more, reorganized everything around them, but never made it feel like pressure, never made Tusan feel like a burden. Everything was done, naturally, gently, without showing off. And from that moment on, Hung and Hai were no longer just occasional visitors, no longer just people who stopped by, but became a constant presence. No reminders needed, no requests needed, but always there. Little Ivy was still young. She didn't understand everything, didn't know exactly what was happening, but she could feel it, feel the change, feel the difference. She only knew that her mother wasn't the same, didn't have the strength to do everything as before. Mornings were no longer Tusan taking Ivy out. That familiar image was gone. Instead, it was Hoisie, preparing everything, every small detail, nothing missing, never let it be interrupted. Everything happened without many words, without assignment, just naturally. There were evenings when Ivy asked softly, "Is Mom tired?" A small question, not many words, but enough to make the space fall silent. Tusan didn't answer right away, not because she didn't know how, but because her emotions couldn't be spoken. She just hugged her child, said nothing more, just a hug, but enough of an answer. Hoisie stood behind, didn't step closer, didn't interrupt, just watched, and then quietly turned away, not because she didn't care, but to hold back her emotions, so no one could see. Whenever Tusan had to go for checkups, she was never alone. There was always someone with her. Hung and Hoisie, no reminders needed, no calls required, always there. One handled the procedures, one stayed by her side, never letting her stand alone in any moment, never letting the silence grow too long, never letting the waiting feel too heavy. Everything happened naturally, no explanation needed, yet very clear that, in moments like this, no one had to carry everything alone. And Hai, throughout that entire time, he never left. It wasn't that he never felt tired, it wasn't that there was no pressure, but not once did he choose to step away from his place. Always there, not loud, not overly expressive, but never absent. There were nights when everything became quieter than usual. No conversations, no lingering activities, but Tusan couldn't sleep, not because of clear pain, not because of any specific symptom, but because of her thoughts, thoughts that kept appearing, out of order, without stopping. The more she tried not to think, the clearer they became. She lay there, not saying anything, not calling anyone, not wanting to bother anyone, just holding everything in silence. Hai sat beside her. He didn't ask, didn't try to figure things out immediately, didn't give advice. He just stayed there. Presence that created no pressure, didn't make things heavier, but also didn't leave. Sometimes there is no need to say anything, just not letting someone be alone is enough. And then, in a very soft moment, Tusan spoke. Her voice was low, not very clear, but enough to be heard. "I'm afraid Ivy will be the one who suffers." A short sentence, no further explanation, but filled with meaning. Not fear for herself, not worry about the present, but thinking ahead, about what might happen, about things she could not control. Hai looked at her, didn't react immediately, didn't answer right away, didn't rush to comfort her, just looked, as if to understand, as if to make sure. He knew what she was thinking. Then he spoke, slowly, clearly. "She lacks nothing." A short sentence, no long explanation, no detailed reasoning, no mention of the future, but enough to hold on to stability, enough to create support. He didn't say more. He didn't need to, because everything happening around them was already the clearest answer. Hung's presence.
Hoài Ca,
The things they did every day. No need to repeat. No need to prove. Just by looking, it was enough to understand that Ivy was not alone, that what she received was not lacking. Time passed, not quickly.
no sudden leaps.
No abrupt changes, just day by day, small stages. But still, there was progress, not obvious at first, but gradually could be seen. A follow-up visit, not much different from the previous ones. The same procedures, the same waiting, the same uncertainty. But this time, when the doctor looked at the results, the atmosphere shifted, not dramatically, but enough to feel. Then the doctor spoke. It's better now. Not a final conclusion, not the end, not everything resolved, but a step, a signal, a different direction compared to before. Not complete relief, but hope, something that had finally appeared. After a long period of waiting, that day, there was no special plan, no prior arrangement, but everyone ended up together, all four of them, picking up Ivy. Not planned, just natural. The little girl ran toward them, without hesitation, without slowing down. She hugged Tusan tightly. No distance,
No hesitation.
no trace of the worry from before. Just a natural reaction, clear and real. That evening, the atmosphere felt different. Not because something new happened, but because the feeling had changed. The four of them sat together. No need for many words. No need to create a mood. Ivy sat in the middle, laughing more, talking more, unaffected by what had happened, not carrying the worries from before. No one brought up the past days. No one retold what had happened. No one analyzed. No one judged. Because there was no need. There are moments that don't need to be revisited, don't need to be named, don't need to be explained. It's enough to know they made it through, and they didn't go through it alone. And perhaps, looking back at everything, the most important thing was not that things got better, not the result, not the visible change, but throughout that entire time, not a single person was left behind. No one had to face it alone. No one had to endure it alone. Everyone was there, together, in a very ordinary way, but more than enough. And when you look at how they got through this, what do you see? Luck or choice? And in the journey ahead, when new challenges appear, will they continue to walk together like this? Or will there be changes that cannot yet be seen? Everything still lies ahead, and the story is still continuing.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video về câu chuyện của Tiểu San và Hải nhé mọi người. Thì hôm nay thì sẽ có cả xen lẫn cả Hoài Ca và Hùng. Khi mà Tiểu San đổ bệnh nặng thì cô sẽ được những người thân yêu của mình luôn ở bên cạnh và yêu thương và giúp đỡ. Điều đó là một cái động lực rất lớn khiến cho cô nhanh chóng hồi phục và có thể nhanh chóng trở về với gia đình và công việc của mình. Và rất may mắn được anh trai của mình là Hùng cũng như chị là Hoài Ca. Hoài Ca thì là người yêu của Hùng, mọi người cũng xem, mọi người biết rồi đấy. Thì liệu rằng diễn biến tiếp theo sẽ như thế nào? Hoài Ca và Hùng sẽ bước tiếp trên con đường tình yêu ra sao? Và liệu Tiểu San và Hải có đồng hành cùng họ hay không? Và con đường tình yêu của cả bốn sẽ như thế nào? Thì mời mọi người đón xem những phần sau nhé. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Bye bye.